Welcome back to the next episode of Lynn's 49 Willis Pickup Project. We're in the middle of a cold snap right now here in Minnesota. It's about 20 below Fahrenheit right now as I walk out to the pole barn. We had about 25 below last night, and we're going to be below zero for probably the next 72 hours. I'm thinking something like that. I think by 9 tonight, it'll be 30 below. But we're going to be inside working in a nice heated shop. So stick with me and we'll see you in a minute. Working through our punch list here, we are going to start with this item, door hinge pockets. Now, something strange happened to all of the 4 door hinge pockets on this truck. You notice there's a big gap, a big opening out here. Let me show you what that's supposed to look like. Okay, this is the best view I can find for this. But you see right down here, this extends all the way down and it kicks in a little bit. It's not just a big opening. You see down in there. So that's what we need to recreate. For starters, I cleaned up this edge. This was all kind of pushed in, so I pried that back out, got it as flat as I could. And then I cut a piece of metal close to the size I need. That's going to butt right up against there. It gives me a nice place to weld. Now I just have to size this to fit. So what I'm going to do is get it marked here. Yep. And I'll cut that off, fit that in, and then once I get it to the size I want, I can bend it. All right, we're trimmed down. It's going to fit in and butt up right there. Now I got to mark my first bend. I think we're going to be right there and right there. Our first bend is going to be just a straight 90 right here. Now that we have our first bend, it's going to fit in there roughly like that. Next, I want to create a little bit of a roll. If you look right here, you can see it's kind of rolled over. It's not just a hard edge. So I need to take this and fold it over. And that's actually very easy to do. This is what makes it so easy. I've got a piece of metal that's exactly the thickness that I want this bend to follow. So I've just clamped it down and pinned it to my bench. Now I just need to bend it over. All right, there it is. Now I just need to cut that to length. Okay, there it is. And it fits right in here. We've got it trimmed to the right size. Now it's just a matter of welding it in. Well, that one's in. Certainly looks better than this. So as you can see when we looked at my truck, not a lot of this is visible. I'm not great at doing these inside corners, but I've got it ground down and it looks pretty decent. We're done with the lower one, and I also finished the driver's side. So let's come down, mark that one off. Okay, now that we've got the hinge pockets squared away, I want to move on to these door limiters. Now there is a little anchor here. Let me show you on this side. Can you see that? There's a little anchor that goes in there, and you can tell this one has been brazed and it's been ripped out and fixed. This side is just, it's not there right now. So on my truck, we just put in some nylon straps to use as door limiters, and it's been working really well. And Guy and I put the hard sell on Len, tried to talk him into that, but Len's not having it. He is all about originality. He's got new replacement door limiters. So I'm going to put these back in place, but I want to beef these up a lot. So I think what I'll do is make new tabs. I'm going to put them into a plate that I can drop down through here and bring it back out here. And then we will plug weld it in here. That'll give us a lot of extra support for that. So hopefully it won't rip out again. So we let nothing go to waste. This was actually a piece that I removed from Len's truck when I had to patch in that upper fender mount on his wheel well, or on his front firewall, I guess, for the fender. But it's just a heavy piece of steel plate. So I'm going to use this to make that backing plate for those anchors. I've got one small bit of work to do before I can put this piece in here. There is actually a metal reinforcing plate behind here, but I don't have any access to it. And so the plate that I bring in here is going to sit against that. And that reinforcing plate is kind of bent out of shape. So I need to flatten it out. And I don't really have a way to do that because this is completely boxed in. There's no way for me to get into that. Let me show you what I'm going to do. I do have access through the door hinge pocket. And so what I want to do is drop a plate down in here and use that to kind of squeeze this flat. So I just took a big heavy piece of metal and I welded a nut on, and I'll put a bolt through this side and squeeze it together, and hopefully that will flatten things out enough that my other plate that goes in there works. So all you need to do is just drop this in now and lower it down. There it is. So I'll line that up, and I'm going to get this bolt through here, and then I can tighten it down. Okay, I'm back. Took me a minute to get this lined up so I could snug it up. Now we are going to tighten this thing up. Almost there already. And as we do this, it should be squeezing everything together and flattening it out. All right. Let's see how we did. get a close up and you can see if we can get it to focus. Okay, yeah, that's nice and flat in there now. That should work for us. This is my plate, and this is going to go up inside the door. I've left these long because until this thing is in the door, I don't really know how far I need to have them stick out. So what I'll end up doing is drilling the hole for them, and then I'll grind them round, but I'm going to do that when it's actually attached to the truck. So the question is, I back up a little bit here. How do I get this inside this cavity? It's enclosed on all four sides. We're going to bring it in through the top, through this hinge pocket, and lower it down and then pull it back through. And in order to do that, though, I've got a couple of things I have to do. I can drop it in there, but to get it to slide forward through here is going to require a little bit of help. So I drilled a tiny hole here. I ran some welding wire up inside here. I'll attach these. I'm going to drop it through, and I'll use that welding wire to feed it through. Wow, that was almost too easy. All right, well, now that we're here, I guess I didn't plan very well, but I need to drill a couple of holes so I can plug weld this thing. So hopefully it'll stay in place while I do that. We're welded in. I drilled a hole too low. It was below the steel plating behind this, so I had to move it up. But I've plug welded it in both these spots, ground everything off, and now the last thing I need to do is just figure out how far out from here I need that little pin hole, or a hole for the, what do you call it, the limiter pin. Once I know where that goes, I'll drill that through both of these, and then I'll round them off with a grinder. This driver's side is probably going to be a bigger challenge because looks like somebody's already been in here and tried to repair this, or at least done the best repair they could. It looks like it's been, I don't know how to, it's basically peeled back this way a little bit, but they brazed this in as a repair. And I'm going to get a scope and show you inside here. You'll be able to get a better view, but you can see there's a bolt and a nut sticking through there. So I think what I'll end up doing is cutting as much of this off as I can, and then see if I can get that bolt and nut out, and then I'll do the exact same repair I did on the other side over here. So here's the good news. I was able to grind off that brazed portion. You can still see the rectangular hole behind there, so I know that I can locate this in the exact right spot. What I had done was just ground this off until I could see the round from that bolt that went through, and I just hit it with a punch and knocked it out. So the next thing I want to do, I don't know if you can see this, this is dished in pretty bad, so it's dented in there. I need to flatten this out, kind of like I did the other side. And I think I'll use the same technique, and it'll be a little bit easier to get this started, because if you can see light through there, what you're going to notice is that somebody had cut an access hole in here probably when they did that other repair. So I can reach in there, get that plate in there, and then we'll use that to flatten this thing out. Okay, let's thread this thing in here. Okay, now that I got it started, let's see if this will do the job. Now it's not completely pulled out, but it's looking a lot better than it was. Let me see what I can do to get that finished up. Well, I shortened this up to make it a smaller piece and put it back in. And then I turned this one this way and tightened it down, and then with it tightened down, I was able to kind of pry it a little bit. And with the exception of a little dip out here, which I don't really care about, I just wanted this to be flat so that when I put my mounts in, that they're perpendicular to this surface. So I think I've accomplished that. All right, we're all done. There's the driver's side. Swing over and take a look at the passenger side. These will work with the original door limiter hardware now. And these limiters now are stronger than they were when this thing rolled off the factory in Toledo in 1948. Okay, next thing on the cab I wanted to work on was this corner. And I didn't film the work, but I'm going to go back and at least show you how I went about this. You can see there's a pretty good dent in the passenger side mid-cab corner on this one. And fortunately, I have access through the back. Now, the dent was right back in here. And you can see I've got pretty good access to almost all of it. So I took a couple of pieces of wood. I took a 2x4. I don't know if you can get a good look at that. And I just kind of ground it off to a little bit softer curve. And I did that also with a 3/4 inch piece of cedar. And I started by just finding the middle of that dent and using a dead blow here, just kind of working my way up and down, in and out. And I was able to get the basic shape on that. And then I just used a hammer and dolly from the outside to kind of fine tune it and get it working. It's kind of hard to tell, but we do have the shape back in this. I'll kind of shoot down at this angle and you can see it's got the curve it needs. Now just a little bit of work with some body filler and some sanding, and I think that's going to pass. Time to get moving on the floors. So I'm going to start on the passenger side. I've already marked out the floor part that I need to replace. And I think I can do this in one piece. So I'm going to begin by cutting this out. And I was looking at this edge. And this part that rolls over is actually in pretty good shape. I don't see any problems with that. So I think what I'm going to do is cut it right on the crest here. These outside corners are actually, for me, pretty easy to weld and to get ground back smooth. So and plus I can see right here I've got some spot welds. So I think if I take it right there, we'll be good. Now there is I call it a rocker support or an inner rocker that's underneath this. And it's also spot welded along here. So I need to get those spot welds out. And with the way this is pitted, I can't even see where they are. But what I do have is a way of getting them from the underside. I'll show you what I'm talking about with that. So this is the inner rocker, and here's where it's spot welded to the floor. I took a sander and cleaned these up, and I can see where all of these spot welds are now. So my plan here is to take a small drill bit, hit the center of this, maybe just like a 1/8 inch or smaller, and drill all the way through so that I can see where those spot welds are from the floor side. Then I can drill out the spot welds on the other side here and separate these. So we got most of the outline cut around here. I can't get up to that corner just yet, but I think we're kind of loose out on this edge now. I think what I'll do is get a Dremel so I can try to get in as tight as I can up to here so I can get this piece out. So I got a fairly worn down wheel. I think what I want to do is start in this corner so I don't wear it out getting to the corner, and I'll put another wheel on if I need to finish this. There's one there. There's one there. Took a little bit of work. I just set this back in. I've already gotten it out. But we got this piece out now. And yeah, it's a good thing that came out. And I would say minimal damage underneath. I've got a spot right here where I cut through this flange. I'll have to weld that back up. It's not a big deal. And then this cross brace, you can see light through there too. So just a little bead of weld from underneath on that side, and that'll be fine. Now I just need to clean all of this up, make a patch, and get it welded in. So we're making progress here. I got my patch ready to go. I've cleaned up the inside of this rail as much as I could reach and treated it with rust converter. I did the same with the patch because this patch is actually made out of old metal from the sides of an old pickup box, but you know what? It's the right thickness and it matches this, and I have it on hand. So that patch is basically going to fit in there like that. There we go. Yeah. So this patch will be welded in, but I got to wait. I got to leave this. I'm going to leave this overnight. And then what I'll do is shoot the underside here with primer. I'll shoot some primer and paint down in here as far as I can reach again. Then we'll be ready to go. Okay, I got everything ready. I got my patch all primed and painted. I've got the cab, this rocker support all primed and painted. We're ready to weld this back in. And unfortunately, I ran out of shielding gas, but I'm going to try something a little different. Trevor over at Tumbleweed Garage, and more recently I've seen Random Rod Shop do the same thing. They're using flux core, and they say it works. So I think I'm going to give that a try. It's a floor. I can take a few chances here, and if it works for me, I could save a little bit of money here on shielding gas. So let's give it a shot. The patch is in. You saw the beginning, and this is the end. So I got it all welded up. You can see these spots right here where I did the plug welds underneath to that channel. And then here's that outer edge. So I will tell you, flux core welding on sheet metal, for me, I think I'm going to reserve it for things like this and structural stuff, because I'm not crazy about, you know, the result. It's just a lot harder for me to get a decent weld down. It's hard for me to get a decent weld down, even with shielded wire, or you know, with the shielded gas and a smaller wire. But this kind of adds a little extra to the task. So I think I'll go back on the exterior stuff to regular solid wire, but the flux core I think will work for things like this. With that floor done, let's move over to the back side here and attack this piece. This is kind of the end of it for this side of the cab. Is this little bit of rot here, and it's on the floor, and it's a little bit up onto this wall, so we're going to have to open that up. And then, I mentioned this earlier, I just need to weld up these cracks and grind that off. So I laid this thing over on its back because access in here is pretty tight. I need to get the rest of this out, and there's just no good way to do that from this side. So I think we can come in from this side, but we got a lot of stuff in the way, and mainly it's this this dolly that we put in place. So I think I'm gonna try to hang this thing with the engine hoist. It's the same thing we used to take the cab off, and then I'm gonna remove this dolly and do all the work here, and then put it all back together. Took a minute, but I think I got this figured out. I'm going to leave the back down on the floor, and I always put a couple of 2x4s under that rain gutter because that's the strongest point on the roof. So I'll just leave that right there on the floor. And on this side, that dolly always, you can see there, the dolly always supports the back and keeps the corner of the cab off the floor. So I got to deal with that. When I take that dolly off, I don't want this thing laying right on the floor. So here's what I'm going to do. I got the engine hoist here. I'm going to hook this and just lift the front end enough to get this off the ground. Then I can unbolt this dolly and remove it. And then maybe I'll throw some nice big boards underneath, right underneath here, right where this pedestal runs all the way across. That's a good strong point on the cab. So if the lift does slowly drop down and it hits the bottom, at least it's not going to damage the cab. It'll have something to rest on. All right, we're good. Okay, that's good. Now we have unobstructed access. So I'm going to finish grinding this out and I'll be back. Got this patch made up. I decided to do is just one patch. It's going to drop right in here. We'll just tack this in and clean up the welds. All done with that repair. Now the cab is still on its back, but I'll try to give you what looks like a fairly upright orientation here. So we're all welded in. I also welded up these cracks up here. And that is good enough for the floor. So this passenger side is done. Now we can work our way over to the driver's side. And then that should be the end of the floor repairs after the driver's side's finished. I already started on the driver's side, and this turned out to be a much bigger section down in the back that needed work than in the front. So, and it also kind of curves up into this section. So I'm going to have to attack this a little bit differently. But I started looking a little bit closer to it just to see if I had to do any more work on this side. And you can see, really starting over here, starting right on this side to the edge is pretty pitted out. And I got in there with a screwdriver and poked it, and most of it's pretty sound, but those are really deep pits, and it would be a shame not to jump in and address these things while I'm looking at them right now. Here in particular, we've got a pit that's all the way through, and then we've got two more here. We'll swing around from the underside. Let's see if we can show you. You can see light coming through those spots. So that's going to need attention. I think what I want to do is, rather than monkeying around with a bunch of little patches, I think I'm going to make one big floor piece that's about 32 inches by 7. Bring it back and around. And on this part, I think what I'll do is tuck it under that flange and weld it from underneath. And then I'll just plug weld it along here too. So that'll hide my welds there. So you'll see a little weld here, and along this edge I can get that cleaned up so you won't really notice it. Then I'll tuck that up underneath, and then what I'll do is make one more piece to wrap in here and come around. This is my last large piece of steel that I can use for this. Everything else has been cut up and chopped up into smaller sections, but this little section right up here is big enough for what I need to use for that patch. So I've just done a rough mark. I'm going to cut it bigger than it needs to be, and then we'll trim it to fit. Got my donor piece for the floor metal. This from the inside of the box. And boy, this thing, she took a beating. Outside's a little better. I'm going to take a hammer and just kind of flatten out some of these spots. It's just for a floor, so we're okay with this piece. I wouldn't use this for an outer body repair, but down on the floor we're good. And I'll put this side up, that side down. It's going to get covered with undercoating. So we're back in here, and I'm looking at now how I want to make this patch. And sometimes making a patch, the easiest way to make a patch is to cut a piece out and use the piece you cut out as kind of a starter template. You just go a little larger and work your way in. And what I want to do with my floor is have it tuck underneath this flange just a little bit, just so that when I weld it from the underside, it'll be hidden. So I already have cut away part of this flange down here, And so if I say I want to go about halfway through, I know I can start there. And then I drilled a hole up here. There it is. And that is about halfway here on that flange as well. Now all I got to do is come to the underside of the floor. There's my hole. I can draw a line from there down to this point, and now I know where to cut from the underside. Well, you might say that escalated quickly, but I got it out of there. One piece. That means I can make one piece to go in there. Now here's a piece that came out. And you have to admit, it looks like the surface of the moon. So I'm glad we're going to put this away and put a new one in. And I think this will at least give us a really good start on a template. So I've painted all this now, got it prepped. And I've been working on this patch panel. And it fits right in like this. Let's see if we can get this thing right. Whoops, I got it backwards. Let's fit it in here. I've been just kind of grinding at it a little bit at a time to get it right. Yeah, I think it's fitting in there really good. I think this is about ready to go. So let's get this tack welded in and see how it looks right now. I got it clamped in place. It's right where I want it. This one's a little tough because it's really hard to get the reach I need. So I put a couple of just regular wood clamps here on the outside, and then some of these El Cheapo, I don't know what you call them, little slot clamps over on this side. So this will help me get this thing started. I was able to use these fender mounts as a good place to clamp this up, and then you can see where that comes through. So I'm going to tack this on now and then just keep working my way around. Been working on the patch. We've got it welded in. I welded a bunch of it from the underside here, and I've still got a little more work to do. But this is as far as I'm going on this episode. I've still got a ways to go, and I really want to get something out for everybody to follow progress here. So in the next episode, we're going to finish this one and move on to some of the outer body repairs. I'll show you the inside here. So yeah, little ways to go on this, but we've got a good fit, and I still need to finish now the vertical part of that wraps around the back. But that's about it. So I want to thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time.